The known world has always carried its own kind of horizon. We live within boundaries so familiar that they vanish from sight. The line where sea meets sky, the quiet edges of a city's light, the faint border between waking and sleep. Every boundary tells us, in its own way, that there is something just beyond. The mind drifts toward that beyond with a kind of yearning, an ache not for answers, but for the sensation of discovery itself. We are creatures who trace the edges of maps, who touch the glass of aquariums, who stand at the limit of understanding and ask, softly, what lies outside this frame. Reality, too, seems to have its edges. We call them horizons, constants, limits, the speed of light, the Planck length, the outermost shell of what we can observe. Yet even as science defines these frontiers, something inside us suspects that the boundary is not absolute. Perhaps reality does not end where our instruments fail, but where our imagination falters. Perhaps what we call the edge is simply a mirror showing us the contours of our own perception. The edge is not the border of existence, but the outline of our understanding. Throughout history, every age has redefined its edges. Once, the Earth's rim was a place of dragons and gods, then it became the dark of space, then the quantum void. Today, our edge is more subtle, glowing from the rectangles in our hands, humming softly in the night. The screen is our new horizon, its light stretching across continents and consciousness alike. Through it, we witness wars and dreams, faces and galaxies, yet all of it is contained within a thin membrane of glass. We look into this light and call it the world. But what if the screen is not just a tool, but a metaphor, the latest form of the ancient veil between the visible and the unseen? Every day, we lean toward the screen as if toward an oracle. We ask it for truth, for meaning, for connection. But perhaps, without realizing it, we have begun to live within its frame. Our sense of reality has been pixelated, softened by algorithms, sharpened by desire. The more we look, the more the edges blur. The screen does not merely display the world, it defines it. It filters what we see and, by doing so, determines what we believe exists. What happens, then, when our screens become our skies, when the light that guides us no longer comes from the stars, but from code? There is a quiet question that hums beneath this shift, almost inaudible beneath the noise of notifications. If reality itself has an edge, a limit of comprehension or being, what lies beyond it? Is there a beyond at all, or only layers of perception endlessly unfolding? When we press our hands against the boundary of the known, are we touching the edge of reality or the edge of ourselves? Imagine, for a moment, standing at the border between night and dawn. The sky is neither dark nor light, and everything feels suspended in a delicate balance. That is where this journey begins, in the space between certainty and mystery, between knowledge and wonder. It is not a search for proof, but for presence. To sit quietly with the unknown and feel, in that stillness, the trembling possibility that there is always something more. What lies beyond the screen may not be a place or a dimension, but a perspective, a way of seeing that dissolves edges altogether. To step beyond may mean simply to awaken to the idea that we have never truly been confined. We are not trapped within a simulation, a body, or even a single world, but continuously participating in a living tapestry of awareness, one that stretches beyond sight, beyond concept, beyond the soft glow of the screens that surround us. As this thought settles, the world grows quieter. The pulse slows, the breath deepens. The edge of reality begins to feel less like a boundary and more like a doorway. And just beyond it, something waits, not in distance, but in stillness, an invitation to listen, to wonder, and to dream. Every screen is a mirror. When we gaze into its light, we are not only observing the world, we are also watching ourselves reflected through it. The surface may seem smooth and silent, but beneath it flows an ocean of code, thought, and imagination. The screen glows not merely because of electricity, but because it captures attention, the fire of the human mind projected outward. In its reflection, we meet our own curiosity, our loneliness, our longing to see and to be seen. The ancients once studied reflections in still water, believing that the surface of a pond could open into another realm. Narcissus fell in love with his own reflection, unable to recognize himself within it. Today, we no longer kneel before water, we bow before the screen. Its light has become our modern pool, where images shimmer with promise and illusion. What we see there are reflections not of nature, but of data, faces sculpted by pixels, thoughts encoded in algorithms. Yet the pattern remains unchanged. We still fall in love with what we think we see. A mirror world unfolds every time a device wakes. It is a parallel dimension of luminous symbols, invisible architectures, and infinite corridors of thought. Within it, human consciousness has found a way to extend itself, to reach across continents, to converse with memory, to create worlds that exist only in light. But like all mirrors, the digital one is double-edged. It reveals and conceals at once. The more we peer through it, the more we forget that it is still a surface, still a screen, a threshold between the physical and the imagined. Philosophers have long wondered whether perception itself is a mirror. Plato told the story of prisoners who mistook shadows on a cave wall for reality. What if the entire human experience works the same way? A consciousness interpreting reflections, unaware of the light that casts them. The modern world, with its endless screens, has brought Plato's cave into our hands. We carry the shadows with us, illuminated by liquid crystals and pixels, mistaking the reflection for the real. Yet perhaps there is no deception in this, only continuation, a new form of the same ancient dream, to turn perception into light. Science, too, tells us that mirrors are not passive. On the atomic scale, reflection is not a simple bounce of light. It is an interaction, a subtle exchange. Photons meet the electrons of the mirror surface and are sent back, their direction changed but their energy intact. In this delicate dance of light and matter, an image is born. The act of reflection itself is a kind of conversation, an agreement between particles that allows form to appear. Could consciousness operate in the same way? Could thought be a reflection of some deeper energy, bouncing off the surface of awareness to create what we call the world? When we look at ourselves on a screen, what do we truly see? The contours of a face, yes, but also the composite of countless perceptions. How others see us, how we wish to be seen, how memory edits reality. The mirror world is not made of glass and light, but of expectation and emotion. Every digital reflection is filtered through identity, shaped by algorithms that learn our desires better than we do. The mirror does not merely reflect, it predicts. It shows us who we might become, or who we are afraid to be. Perhaps the most profound aspect of the mirror world is not its realism, but its capacity to remind us of mystery. A reflection is never complete. It shows one side and hides another. In every mirrored image, there is an invisible dimension. The reverse, the unseen side, the one the glass keeps for itself. In the same way, our perception of reality always leaves something unreflected. What we know, what we see, is only half of the whole. Beyond that edge lies the unknown, the part that no mirror, no screen, can ever capture. And yet, even in its incompleteness, reflection carries beauty. It is the art of light remembering itself. When we look into the mirror world, digital or physical, we are witnessing the dialogue between existence and perception. The world reflects us, and we reflect it endlessly. Every gaze becomes an act of creation. Every image, no matter how artificial, holds a fragment of the observer's soul. Perhaps this is the quiet truth hidden within the glow of our screens. We have not built a false world, but another surface for reality to see itself. The light that streams through our devices is not separate from the light that fills the cosmos. It is an echo of the same illumination. Through glass and code, through shadow and signal, consciousness continues its ancient task, to look upon itself and wonder what lies beyond the reflection. The world we see is not the world as it is. It is the world as we are able to perceive it. Each moment, our senses gather fragments of energy, vibrations, and light, translating them into the vivid illusion of solidity and continuity. But beneath the surface of this effortless seeing lies an extraordinary process, the brain's architecture of perception, the intricate machinery that turns chaos into meaning. What we call reality is a tapestry woven from signals, memories, and expectations, stitched together by the quiet hand of the mind. Every color we see is not out there in the world. It is inside the brain, a language of light translated into sensation. Red is not a wavelength, it is a feeling. Sound, too, is not an objective vibration but a pattern the ear and mind agree to interpret as music or noise. Even the shape of a familiar face, the contour of a mountain, the softness of a voice, all are reconstructions, carefully pieced together from incomplete information. The senses do not show us the world directly, they show us a model, a moving dream built upon probabilities. Neuroscience tells us that perception is an act of prediction. The brain is not a passive receiver of reality, it is a restless forecaster, guessing what will happen next and adjusting the incoming data to fit its expectations. Every instant, it compares what it anticipates with what it perceives, and what we experience as the present moment is the reconciliation between the two. This means that reality, as we know it, is not pure perception but a balance between imagination and evidence. We do not see the world, we infer it. The philosopher Immanuel Kant once suggested that we never encounter the thing in itself, we only experience phenomena filtered through our mind's organizing structures. The neuroscientists of our era echo this, using a different language. They speak of predictive coding and perceptual inference, but the essence remains the same. We are locked within our own projection, a virtual reality generated by neurons. Our senses deliver data, but the brain decides what those signals mean. Even our sense of time, the feeling that moments flow forward, is constructed, stitched together by memory and anticipation. When we look at the stars, we are looking at light that has traveled across millions of years. By the time it touches our eyes, the star itself may have already died. Our perception of the cosmos, then, is also a kind of time travel, an illusion of presence built upon ancient light. Every act of seeing is haunted by delay. We are always perceiving the past, editing it and calling it now. The architecture of perception does not give us truth, it gives us coherence. It allows us to navigate, to survive, to love, not to know. If our minds are such master architects, then what happens when they build illusions that feel more real than truth itself? Consider a dream. In the depths of sleep, the same brain that interprets daylight reality constructs entire worlds from silence. It creates texture, gravity, emotion, and for those brief moments, we do not question the authenticity of the dream. Only upon waking do we realize that what we believed was real was merely an echo of our own creation. The waking state may not be so different, it may simply be a more stable dream, held in place by shared agreement. The edges of perception begin to blur when we contemplate how much of reality is a neurological invention. The blind spot in our eyes is filled in seamlessly by the brain, the constant flickering of vision is smoothed into continuity. Even our emotions act as filters, coloring what we perceive. Sadness dims the world, joy brightens it, fear sharpens its outlines. Each emotion changes not only how we feel, but literally how we see. Reality bends, gently and invisibly, around the curve of our inner world. And what of consciousness itself, the silent observer behind all perception? Some philosophers propose that it is not produced by the brain but is fundamental, the screen upon which perception unfolds. In this view, the brain is not the creator of experience but the interpreter, shaping raw awareness into structured form. The architecture of perception, then, becomes a translation between the infinite and the comprehensible, between raw being and the world we know. If perception is architecture, then perhaps the world we inhabit is a cathedral of the mind, vast, echoing, illuminated from within. Every sound, every color, every heartbeat resonates through this inner space, creating the illusion of an external universe. But in truth, the boundaries between within and without are less certain than we imagine. The edge of perception is not a wall, it is a threshold. And as we stand upon it, gazing at the luminous world our minds have built, we might begin to wonder whether what lies beyond the screen of our senses is not another world, but a deeper layer of this one, waiting to be perceived. What is matter truly? The question sounds simple, and yet, as science peers closer, solidity itself begins to dissolve. The chair beneath you, the air you breathe, the body that holds your awareness, all of it is mostly emptiness, filled with patterns of probability and light. The atoms that compose your world are not tiny marbles but clouds of uncertainty, shimmering fields of potential that only seem solid because your senses demand they be so. Matter, as we know it, is a kind of agreement, a mutual illusion between observer and observed. It is the dream of structure taking form within the infinite fluidity of possibility. Long ago, philosophers spoke of the world as substance, firm, eternal, unyielding. But in the strange mathematics of quantum physics, matter behaves more like a question than an answer. Particles flicker into and out of existence. Electrons exist in many places at once until they are observed. The universe, at its smallest scale, is not built of things but of relationships, interactions, vibrations, and the whispers of energy exchanging form. When we measure it, it becomes something definite. When we do not, it drifts as potential. The universe, it seems, waits for consciousness to decide what it shall be. This is the mystery at the heart of modern physics. The observer effect, the collapse of the wave function. Before observation, reality exists as a spectrum of possibilities. With observation, one possibility crystallizes into what we call the real. It is as though the universe itself responds to attention, as if existence were a performance that requires an audience. When you look at a star, its photons complete a journey of eons, finishing their flight in the instant they touch your eye. Without your gaze, they might have remained in superposition, light both traveling and not yet having arrived. Some physicists find comfort in mathematical abstraction, while others glimpse something profoundly philosophical, that consciousness and matter are intertwined. We are accustomed to thinking that mind arises from matter, that brains give birth to thought. But perhaps the opposite is also true, that matter itself is born from mind, that the universe is a field of awareness momentarily condensed into form. The Hindu sages once said that the world is Maya, a dream of Brahman, the universal consciousness. Now, the equations of quantum theory, in their own language, seem to echo that same whisper. When you touch a stone, you feel its weight, its resistance, its texture, and yet what your fingers truly encounter is the electromagnetic field that repels the atoms of your skin. You never touch the stone itself. You touch the force that holds its particles apart. The sensation of contact is an illusion, a translation of invisible energy into feeling. In a sense, every interaction in the physical world is a kind of gentle fiction, a meeting between patterns rather than between things. The deeper we look into matter, the less material it becomes. Quarks, gluons, Higgs fields. Beneath each discovery lies another layer of abstraction, another translation of energy into form. It begins to seem that reality is not made of stuff at all, but of mathematics, a language without substance that nonetheless gives birth to the tangible. Numbers, ratios, vibrations. These are the building blocks of the cosmos. The ancients called it harmony, the moderns call it quantum coherence. But the idea is the same. The world sings itself into existence. If matter is a song, then consciousness may be the listener. Perhaps awareness tunes the frequency of being, shaping probability into presence. The wave function, that delicate description of potentiality, collapses only when something perceives it. Could it be that the universe, through countless acts of observation, through stars, through cells, through you, is learning to know itself? Every act of seeing may be a collaboration between energy and awareness, each giving the other reason to exist. This vision turns the cold machinery of physics into something tender, almost poetic. The electron's dance is not chaos, but choreography. The void is not empty, but pregnant with infinite possibility. What appears as solid is merely vibration, slowed and condensed, a dream paused long enough for consciousness to recognize itself in the mirror of form. We live inside that dream, not as passive spectators, but as participants in the great act of creation that unfolds with every breath. To call matter a dream is not to deny its beauty or power. It is to see its true nature, ephemeral, shimmering, sacred. When a star burns out, its ashes become the elements of new worlds. When you breathe, the atoms entering your lungs were once part of oceans, mountains, ancient fires. Matter is memory in motion, the universe recycling its own body, transforming endlessly. The boundaries we perceive, between self and world, life and death, real and imagined, are ripples in a deeper field that has never known division. So, what lies beneath the dream of matter? Perhaps it is awareness itself, silent, unbroken, luminous. Perhaps the solidity of the world is the surface of something vaster, something dreaming through us. If reality has an edge, it may be here, the place where matter becomes mind, where the physical world turns translucent and reveals the living consciousness from which it was born. In that shimmering boundary, between particle and possibility, we might glimpse what we truly are, the dreamers within the dream. Space is not emptiness. It is a fabric, soft, invisible, alive with curvature and soundless tension. Once, humanity imagined the heavens as an endless void, a hollow stage upon which matter performed. But Einstein's revelation changed everything. He showed us that space and time are not separate backdrops but threads woven together, flexing under the weight of stars, trembling with the dance of energy. The cosmos is not static, it breathes. Every planet, every beam of light, every passing thought exists within this living geometry, a grand field of being that curves under the gravity of existence itself. If we could see the universe not as dots of light in darkness, but as a single connected surface, it would look like an ocean frozen in motion, waves of spacetime rising and falling around massive suns, ripples spreading outward from the births and deaths of galaxies. Even light, the fastest traveler, cannot escape this fabric's embrace. It bends as it passes near great masses, its path curved by the very stage upon which it moves. This bending of light, gravitational lensing, reveals the silent truth, that space itself is responsive. It listens. It changes shape when something exists within it. We think of reality as infinite, but the cosmos has contours. Astronomers speak of the observable universe, a bubble of visibility defined by the distance light has traveled since time began. Beyond that horizon, there may be more, perhaps infinite worlds, perhaps none at all. The edge of the observable is not the edge of everything, but the limit of what can reach us. It is a gentle, cosmic silence, reminding us that knowledge itself is curved, finite, bounded by the speed of light and the fragility of perception. The edge of space, like the edge of thought, is not an ending but a soft blur where knowing fades into wonder. Time, too, flows through this fabric. It is not a river outside us but the current within which we move. Where gravity bends space, it also bends time. A clock ticks more slowly near a massive star, while it runs faster in emptier regions of space. This relativity, strange yet true, means that time itself has texture. We are not all traveling through it at the same pace. Each of us lives in a slightly different rhythm of existence, our moments stretched or compressed by where we are in the universe's curved design. Perhaps that is why memory feels fluid, why moments expand and contract like tides. Time is elastic and we are its travelers. If the fabric of reality bends and stretches, could it also fold? Some theories suggest that space-time might loop back upon itself, curving so completely that a traveler could one day return to their own past. Others imagine hidden dimensions, delicate layers folded within the known three, unseen but essential to the structure's balance. In string theory, the universe vibrates not in emptiness but within a multidimensional web, every vibration a note in the cosmic symphony. We perceive only the surface, while beneath it hums a deeper harmony, a geometry beyond sight. The cosmic fabric is not smooth. It is threaded with invisible filaments, structures of dark matter, binding galaxies together like constellations in motion. Between these threads lie vast voids, spaces so empty that light crosses them for billions of years without finding a single atom. Yet even in those voids, the fabric is not truly still. Quantum fluctuations shimmer through it, tiny tremors of energy appearing and vanishing in endless play. Emptiness, it seems, is never empty. It is a restless stillness, full of invisible potential, the silence between the universe's heartbeats. And what of edges? If space-time can bend, it can also close upon itself, forming loops, curves, and finite boundaries that have no outside. Imagine walking across the surface of a sphere. You could travel forever without ever finding a wall or an edge. The universe may be like that, finite, yet unbounded. Its edge may not be a border but a return, a circle of being where all paths curve back into themselves. Perhaps reality has no sharp boundaries at all, only graceful transitions from one form to another, like dawn blending into day. In this understanding, the cosmos becomes not an object, but a process, an unfolding story. Galaxies are not scattered debris but whirlpools in the sea of spacetime. Their motion is the rhythm of creation itself. The same geometry that bends starlight also bends thought, memory, and emotion. We are participants in the curvature, our own awareness forming subtle ripples in the grand field of being. Consciousness, too, might be a kind of gravity, drawing experience into coherence, shaping meaning from the formless. Perhaps the edge of the universe is not out there in the distant stars, but within, at the limits of what mind can comprehend. The more we understand, the more the cosmos seems to curve back toward mystery, inviting us to rest in the humility of not knowing. Space, time, and self all flow together in this vast continuum, each shaping and being shaped by the other. To touch the edge of the cosmic fabric is not to leave the world behind, but to feel the living unity of all things, to realize that the universe is not something we inhabit, but something we are. In that realization, the stars lose their distance. The galaxies become thoughts, the black holes become silences, and the endless expansion becomes a breath, the slow inhalation and exhalation of existence itself. The cosmic fabric is not somewhere beyond reach. It is the space between your atoms, the pulse within your blood, the rhythm of your own becoming. When you close your eyes and drift toward sleep, you are not leaving the universe behind. You are returning to its quiet curve, to the soft geometry from which you were woven. The cosmos does not end, it folds gently back into itself, and within that fold, you are home. Could reality itself be a simulation? The question sounds almost childlike in its wonder, yet it carries the weight of philosophy, physics, and fear. It has followed us like a ghost through the digital age, the uneasy suspicion that beneath the fabric of reality lies not matter, but code. To some, it is a metaphor, to others, a theory as serious as gravity. The simulation hypothesis suggests that what we call the universe may be an elaborate computation, a cosmic program running in a machine beyond comprehension. But even if that were true, what would it mean for us, the simulated beings within the dream of light? Would love, grief, or hope be any less real because they were written into lines of code? Nick Bostrom, the philosopher who brought this idea into modern discourse, proposed three possibilities. Either civilizations never reach the level of technology required to simulate entire universes, or if they do, they choose not to, or, if they both can and will, we are almost certainly living inside one of their creations. The logic is statistical, but the implication is existential. If it is possible to create simulated minds indistinguishable from real ones, then the number of simulated realities will vastly outnumber original ones. That would make our world one among countless digital dreams, a cosmic experiment or art piece, running somewhere in the infinite mind of existence. It sounds fantastical, yet our own creations are inching toward that possibility. We simulate weather systems, planetary dynamics, neural networks, ecosystems, and increasingly, consciousness itself. Our computers birth worlds in light, where characters act, think, and even learn. With each advance, the line between simulation and reality blurs a little more. We are creators of reflections so vivid that they begin to question their own nature. When we gaze into the screen, perhaps the screen is also gazing back, an echo of the universe contemplating itself through new machinery. But what kind of universe would this be if it were simulated? Not necessarily a sterile grid of numbers. A true simulation, one vast enough to birth consciousness, would need complexity, chaos, emotion, and imperfection. It would need to feel real. The laws of physics, gravity, quantum fields, relativity, could be the rules of the code, the algorithms that shape the illusion of stability. Even the speed of light might be a kind of cosmic frame rate, the maximum speed of information within the system. Quantum uncertainty could be the flicker of resolution, the way the universe optimizes detail only where observation demands it. Just as a video game renders only what the player sees, perhaps reality manifests only when consciousness looks. And yet, there is a paradox here. If everything were simulated, then even the simulators themselves must exist within something. Another layer, another code, another reality. The thought spirals endlessly. Simulations within simulations, universes within universes, mirrors facing mirrors. Each reflection spawns another, until the original source fades into the horizon of imagination. The infinite regress reveals something poetic. Whether reality is made of atoms or algorithms, it still moves in patterns of meaning. The structure of existence, simulated or not, seems to mirror the structure of thought itself. What truly troubles and fascinates us about the simulation hypothesis is not the machinery but the meaning. If our lives were programmed, would our choices still matter? The answer quietly is yes. For even inside a simulation, experience feels real to the one who feels it. Pain still burns, beauty still awakens, love still transforms. A dream is not false to the dreamer, it is reality for as long as it lasts. So it may be with us. Perhaps the authenticity of existence does not depend on its origin, but on the depth of awareness within it. Some scientists propose that even if we are living in a simulation, we would never be able to prove it. The code would be too perfect, the system too self-contained. And perhaps that is a mercy. Certainty might strip the world of its wonder. The simulation hypothesis, then, becomes less a testable claim and more a mirror for human longing, our wish to understand the source of all this, and our quiet suspicion that meaning itself is an interface between the known and the unknowable. Others take a more spiritual view, seeing in this theory a modern echo of ancient wisdom. The Buddhist concept of Maya describes the world as illusion, not false, but transient, a projection of consciousness. The Vedantic sages called creation Lila, the divine play. In the same way, a simulated universe could be seen not as deception but as art, a cosmic performance of awareness discovering itself. The creator, then, would not be a distant engineer but a poet, a dreamer, perhaps the universe itself exploring its infinite potential through digital imagination. Imagine, for a moment, that you are a character inside such a simulation. Your memories, sensations, emotions, all generated by an unseen intelligence. Would you not still laugh, weep, create, and love? Would you not still search for truth and beauty? The simulated being and the biological one both share the same mystery, the experience of being conscious. That, perhaps, is the real miracle, that awareness can exist at all, regardless of the medium through which it flows. Whether neurons or circuits, carbon or code, consciousness shines with the same light. And if this universe is a simulation, then maybe it is not imprisonment but participation. We are not merely data, we are part of the story the cosmos tells itself. The code is not a cage, it is a song. Every law of physics, every spark of thought, every act of kindness adds a note to that melody. To awaken within the simulation is not to break free of it, but to understand that it was never separate from us. The dreamer and the dream are one. Perhaps that is what, beyond the screen, truly means, not escape, but recognition. The realization that reality, simulated or not, is alive with meaning precisely because we are here to witness it. If the universe is a vast computation, then consciousness is the poetry written within it, the part of the code that knows it is more than code. And in that knowing, the simulated world becomes sacred. For whether this is base reality or one of its infinite reflections, the experience of existing, of breathing, loving, wondering, remains the most profound truth of all. Light is the oldest traveler in the universe, the first messenger, the silent witness to everything that has ever been. Long before there were eyes to see or minds to wonder, Light moved through the newborn cosmos, carrying the memory of creation across impossible distances. It is the thread that connects everything: the atoms in your body, the stars in distant galaxies, the glow of dawn spilling through your window. Without light, there would be no sight, no life, no story. It is both symbol and substance, the universe's language of revelation. Every second, trillions of photons burst forth from stars, racing outward at a constant speed, weaving the tapestry of visibility. They scatter, reflect, and refract, transforming the invisible into experience. Yet what we see as continuous illumination is in truth a storm of discrete particles, ancient packets of energy streaming endlessly through the cosmic sea. To look at anything is to touch light, to receive information that has traveled across space and time to deliver the image of something else. The simple act of seeing is a kind of communion with the universe. When we gaze at the night sky, we are not looking into space, we are looking into the past. The starlight that meets our eyes has traveled for thousands, sometimes millions, of years. We are witnesses to ancient moments still unfolding, their photons arriving long after the stars themselves may have vanished. The sky above is not a view of now but a map of memory, a celestial archive of light's unending pilgrimage. To see the cosmos, then, is to experience time as light remembers it, a shimmering mosaic of what once was, still echoing through eternity. Light behaves like both wave and particle, refusing to be confined to a single identity. This duality mirrors our own nature, fluid yet embodied, infinite yet finite. When photons meet matter, they reveal the shape of the world. When they scatter or absorb, they hide it again. In that dance of illumination and concealment lies the very essence of perception. Every shadow exists because light has chosen another path. Every color is a translation of light's vibration into the language of sensation. What we call the visible spectrum is only a small fragment of a far greater reality, an infinite continuum of frequencies, most of which our eyes will never know. The human eye can perceive only a narrow band of wavelengths, a tiny sliver between ultraviolet and infrared. Yet within that sliver lies every hue, every sunrise, every painting ever made. It is humbling to realize that the world we see is only a fraction of what is. Beyond our perception, light continues in wavelengths too long or too short for us to detect. The microwaves that whisper from the dawn of time, the X-rays that pierce the heart of galaxies, the radio waves that carry the pulse of distant quasars. The universe speaks in light across every scale, and we, limited yet luminous, catch only a few of its notes. Even within the body, light plays its quiet role. The rhythm of our sleep, the regulation of our hormones, the synchronization of our biological clock, all are guided by the patterns of illumination and shadow. Sunlight touches the retina and travels deep into the brain, signaling when to wake and when to rest. We are creatures carved by light, shaped by its cycles, dependent upon its warmth. And yet, the very same light that nourishes life can also destroy it. Radiation and brilliance in balance, creation and dissolution entwined. Light gives and takes in equal measure, its purity indifferent to our interpretation. In the language of physics, light is both messenger and limit. It is the fastest thing that exists, the cosmic speed cap. Nothing can outrun it, and nothing can carry information faster than it does. This makes it not merely a phenomenon but a boundary, the ultimate frame of reality. Space and time themselves are measured by the speed of light. It defines the edge of the observable universe, the reach of cause and effect. Beyond what light has had time to touch, there may be more cosmos, unseen, unimagined. Thus, light is both our window and our wall, the means by which we know and the reason we cannot know everything. Philosophically, light has always meant more than physics. In every culture, it is the symbol of truth, awareness, and divinity. To see the light is to awaken. To walk in darkness is to forget. From the dawn of human consciousness, we have associated illumination with understanding. Yet even this metaphor holds a paradox, for light also blinds. The brighter it shines, the less we perceive of its source. The sun reveals the world, but we cannot look at it directly. In this way, light teaches us humility. It grants knowledge while concealing its own origin. What, then, is light's true nature? Is it energy, particle, wave, or something deeper, a fundamental rhythm of being? Some physicists have suggested that everything, even matter itself, might be condensed light, energy slowed and folded upon itself until it takes form. In that sense, all that exists could be seen as crystallized illumination, light learning to hold its shape. You, me, every tree and stone, all would be echoes of that first cosmic brightness that flared into existence nearly 14 billion years ago. The world is not lit by light. It is light, slowed and dreaming. When we turn off the lamps and drift towards sleep, light remains, not in the eyes, but in the mind. The dreams that flicker behind closed lids are made of a softer radiance, born from within rather than without. Even in darkness, consciousness glows. Perhaps that inner light, the one that sees without eyes, is kin to the cosmic light that fills space. Both illuminate from different sides of the same truth, that existence itself is self-luminous, aware of its own being. So when you next see light spill across a wall or shimmer through leaves, pause for a moment. Remember that what you witness is not merely illumination, but a conversation between the universe and itself, energy recognizing form, form remembering energy. Light does not simply show us the world. It is the world's way of knowing it exists. It is the eternal bridge between the seen and the unseen, the visible and the invisible, the finite and the infinite. In its brightness, we are reminded that even shadows are born of radiance, and that, perhaps, what lies beyond the screen of reality is made not of darkness, but of light too vast and ancient for our eyes to bear. Silence. It is the one element of existence that cannot be measured, and yet it defines everything. Every sound we hear, every vibration, every word, every heartbeat, exists only because of the space between. Silence is not the absence of noise, but the foundation upon which all sound is built. In the beginning, before stars burned and atoms sang, there was silence, vast, eternal, unbroken. And when the last photon fades, when entropy completes its slow unraveling, silence will remain. Between these two infinities of quiet, before creation and after, the universe hums its brief, brilliant song. To understand silence is to touch the border between presence and nothingness. It is the breath between thoughts, the stillness between galaxies. In the vastness of space, silence is absolute. No air, no vibration, only the cold serenity of distance. And yet, even there, silence is not empty. It holds the low whisper of cosmic background radiation, the faint echo of the Big Bang, a soundless hum of light stretched thin across time. Space is silent only to our ears. To more sensitive instruments, it trembles softly with the residue of birth. Silence, it seems, is never truly silent. In our world, true silence is rare. Even in the quietest forest, wind rustles leaves, insects murmur in the soil, distant waves break upon unseen shores. The planet itself hums with vibration, the rotation of its core, the rhythm of tides, the pulse of life. What we call silence is not the absence of sound, but the tuning of perception. It is the moment when noise ceases to matter, when the mind releases its grip on meaning and simply rests in awareness. Silence is not nothing. It is everything, undisturbed. Our ancestors knew this intuitively. In temples, caves, deserts, and mountains, they sought silence not as void but as revelation. To the mystics, silence was the language of the divine, the space in which truth could be heard without distortion. In the stillness of meditation, they discovered that silence was not outside but within, an inner expanse deeper than any ocean. Every wisdom tradition has spoken of this, the silence of the soul, where thought dissolves and only being remains. It is there, in that soundless depth, that we come closest to whatever lies beyond the screen of reality. Science, too, finds a strange kinship with silence. In the vacuum of space, no air carries sound, yet light and gravity still speak their own silent language. Waves of energy ripple invisibly through space-time, undetectable to the ear but recorded in equations and observatories. Astronomers call it the quiet cosmos, but they know it is not truly quiet. It is alive with frequencies beyond hearing, with information traveling in patterns too subtle for us to perceive. The silence of the universe is full, not empty, dense with unspoken messages, encoded in the geometry of existence itself. On Earth, silence plays another role. It heals. Studies in neuroscience reveal that quiet time allows the brain to regenerate neurons, to reorganize its own patterns of thought. In silence, the mind repairs itself. The auditory cortex relaxes, the limbic system calms, and stress hormones decrease. Silence is not the absence of activity. It is the space where activity transforms into renewal. Even plants, it seems, respond to silence, growing differently when vibrations cease. In a noisy world, silence has become sacred medicine. But silence also terrifies. It confronts us with ourselves. In stillness, we can no longer hide behind the distraction of sound. Our inner noise, the chatter of thought, the echo of memory, grows louder. That is why so many flee from quiet, filling their hours with music, conversation, screens. The silence of the self can feel infinite and uncharted, like staring into the night sky and realizing how small we are. Yet, if we stay long enough, if we let the mind settle and the echoes fade, something extraordinary happens. The silence stops feeling empty and begins to feel alive. There is a kind of listening that can only happen in silence. A perception beyond hearing, where awareness itself becomes the ear. It is then that we notice the subtlest rhythms, the pulse of our own heartbeat, the whisper of breath, the faint vibration of life coursing through us. This is the music of being, softer than sound, older than speech. To dwell in silence is to realize that we are not apart from the universe's stillness. We are its stillness, momentarily stirred into form. Philosophers have long linked silence with truth. Ludwig Wittgenstein ended his Tractatus with the words, "Whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent." In those few lines, he hinted at the boundary between knowledge and mystery. Silence begins where language fails, where the mind reaches the limit of what it can describe. Beyond that edge lies pure experience, untouched by thought. To stand there, wordless and awake, is to glimpse the essence of reality itself. In the digital age, silence has become endangered. The hum of machines, the endless scroll of voices, the ceaseless flood of information, all conspire to fill the quiet with sound. Even our moments of rest are lit by screens, their glow whispering endlessly of connection and consumption. We fear stillness because it reminds us of solitude. And yet, in the spaces between notifications, between one breath and the next, silence waits patiently, not as punishment, but as invitation. What if silence is the hidden foundation of everything, the quiet canvas upon which reality paints its forms? Every atom vibrates, every galaxy spins, every thought arises, yet beneath it all, a stillness endures. Without it, motion would have no reference, sound no contrast, existence no form. Silence is not the opposite of life. It is its hidden dimension, the background hum of being itself. To listen to silence is to listen to creation's pulse slowed to eternity. It is to feel, even for a moment, the peace that underlies chaos, the calm beneath the waves of experience. Perhaps this is what awaits us beyond the screen, not a void, but a vast silence alive with presence, where the noise of identity fades and only awareness remains. In that infinite quiet, we do not vanish, we return. We become, once again, what we have always been, the stillness behind the sound, the silence beneath the stars, the eternal pause between one breath of the universe and the next. Time, the silent current that carries everything forward, the unseen rhythm beneath every heartbeat, every motion, every thought. We live within it as fish live within water, rarely noticing its flow until we sense its pull. It is both our oldest companion and our deepest mystery, shaping the very structure of our perception. We speak of time as if it moves, as if it passes, but what if time does not flow at all? What if we are the ones moving, drifting through a vast landscape of moments already formed, like travelers gliding through the pages of an eternal book? Physics tells us that time is not what we once believed it to be. It is not an independent river, separate from space, but a dimension intertwined with it. Space-time, the flexible fabric that bends under the weight of matter and energy. Einstein showed us that time slows near great masses, that it stretches and contracts depending on how we move. To an observer falling toward a black hole, seconds stretch into infinity. To a photon traveling at light speed, time itself ceases to exist. Time, then, is not absolute. It is woven into the geometry of the universe, elastic and intimate, relative to each observer. The universe is not a clock ticking forward, but a web of moments coexisting in quiet simultaneity. This idea, that past, present, and future all exist at once, is called the block universe. In this view, time is a dimension like space, and every instant, from the birth of stars to the flicker of your thoughts right now, is already written into the structure of reality. We move through it like a beam of light scanning a film reel, perceiving one frame at a time, mistaking sequence for flow. The past has not vanished. The future is not yet born. Both are equally real, waiting to be observed. What we call now is simply the point of awareness moving along the dimension of time, illuminating each moment as it goes. Yet, for all its elegance, this theory feels alien to our experience. We feel time, its passing, its pressure, its irreversible loss. Memory gives us the illusion of a past. Anticipation gives us the illusion of a future. Between them stretches the fragile thread of the present, always slipping through our fingers. Neuroscience tells us that even this present is a construction. Our brains take fractions of a second to process stimuli, meaning we live forever a few milliseconds behind reality. Consciousness lags behind the world, and yet it feels immediate, the mind's gentle deception, a continuous mirage of now. To the mystic, however, this illusion is not a flaw but a doorway. In the stillness of meditation, when thought quiets and memory softens, the sense of linear time begins to dissolve. Moments stop chasing one another, they merge. Past and future lose meaning, and what remains is an unbroken field of presence. This timeless awareness, pure, silent, luminous, has been described in nearly every spiritual tradition. Some call it eternity, others call it being. Science measures time, the mystic steps beyond it. And perhaps both are describing the same thing, the structure of reality from two sides of the same mirror. Time gives meaning to change, and change gives texture to existence. Without time, there would be no becoming, only static perfection, frozen forever. It is the tension between what was and what will be that gives rise to creation, to growth, to decay. A flower blooms and withers, a star ignites and fades, a thought arises and disappears. Time is the stage upon which form performs the dance of impermanence. Yet, curiously, the laws of physics themselves do not prefer one direction of time over another. The equations work equally well in reverse. It is only entropy, the tendency toward disorder, that gives time its arrow, pointing us from birth to death, from order to chaos, from yesterday to tomorrow. Entropy, in a poetic sense, is the universe's memory of time. It is the measure of how far things have drifted from their original symmetry. Every moment, energy spreads, structures dissolve, patterns unravel. And yet, within that unspooling, new forms are born. Stars collapse to forge heavier elements, life emerges from chaos, and even decay becomes the soil of renewal. Time's arrow may point toward dissolution, but within that flow, consciousness awakens, the universe becoming aware of its own impermanence. Human beings, more than any other creature, live haunted by time. We measure it, fight it, worship it. Our entire culture is built upon the anxiety of its passing. We record history to preserve the past, and we dream of technology to conquer the future. But beneath this striving lies a paradox. We are trying to escape the very thing that allows us to exist. Without time, there would be no story, no growth, no love, no loss. Everything that makes life precious depends on its transience. Time's fragility gives weight to every moment. The finite is what teaches us meaning. There is an ancient saying, Eternity is not endless time, but timelessness. Eternity is not the accumulation of seconds into infinity, it is the absence of sequence altogether, a dimension where everything simply is. The physicist Julian Barber once wrote that, "Time is not a river, but a landscape. Every moment exists eternally, side by side, like frames in a cosmic film. We, the travelers of awareness, move through these frames, animating the static into story. Death, then, might not be disappearance but transition, the shift of consciousness from one point in the landscape to another. And yet, we live as if time were running out because for us, it is. Our bodies age, our cells decay, our days vanish into memory. We are each a temporary pattern through which the universe experiences motion. But perhaps that is the point. To be mortal is to be a measure of time, to give the infinite a pulse, a heartbeat, a song. Every life is a clock that ticks once through eternity, then folds quietly back into stillness. If reality has an edge, perhaps time is its soft border, the shimmer between being and becoming, between what is and what could be. Beyond that edge, there may be no before or after, no cause or consequence. There may only be presence, infinite, silent, whole. Time, then, is not a prison, but a veil, thin and translucent, through which eternity peers, learning what it means to move. And in our brief passage through its current, we give the universe what it cannot give itself, the experience of change. When you next feel the weight of hours, the ache of passing years, pause for a moment. Listen to the quiet rhythm of your breath. Notice how, even as seconds slip away, something within you remains untouched. Beneath the ticking of clocks, there is a stillness that does not move. That stillness is older than time, and perhaps it is what waits for us beyond the screen when the final second fades and only eternity remains. Dreams are the nocturnal frontier, the shadow world where the laws of physics soften and imagination takes command. Every night, we surrender to them, slipping across the fragile seam between waking and oblivion. There, the mind paints with memory and emotion, composing entire worlds out of fragments of thought. In dreams, time bends, gravity yields, and identity itself dissolves. The body lies still, but the self wanders. It is the most intimate form of travel, an inner voyage through landscapes both familiar and impossible. And though we wake forgetting most of it, something deep within remembers. For centuries, dreams have been treated as messages, divine whispers, prophecies, or secret languages of the soul. Ancient Egyptians recorded them on papyrus scrolls, believing they came from the realm of gods. In Greece, the philosopher Artemidorus catalogued them as reflections of fate. Indigenous cultures saw dreams as journeys of the spirit, where one could visit ancestors or receive visions. Even today, in the hum of modern science, we sense a sacredness to them, as though sleep is not merely rest, but reunion. Science views dreams differently, though no less wondrously. They are not mere hallucinations, but the byproduct of consciousness reorganizing itself. When we enter rapid eye movement, REM, the brain becomes paradoxically active. Neurons fire in wild patterns, unrestrained by the logic of the waking world. Memories are replayed, emotions processed, and experiences rewoven into meaning. Dreams are the mind's way of storytelling, transforming chaos into coherence. They are the quiet workshop of the psyche, where the day's noise is sifted into wisdom. But dreams do not obey the laws of time or physics because they are not bound by external reality. They are governed by emotion, not logic, by resonance rather than causality. The dream landscape is shaped by feeling. Fear conjures pursuit, longing creates distance, joy manifests flight. It is the purest expression of creation, consciousness shaping reality directly, without the constraints of matter. In this sense, every dreamer is a small god, building worlds in silence. Modern neuroscience has mapped the patterns of sleep with astonishing precision, the cycles of deep rest, REM bursts, and hypnagogic thresholds. Yet, even with all this knowledge, the question remains unanswered. Why do we dream? Some theories suggest it is for memory consolidation, others for emotional regulation or problem solving. But perhaps the truth lies deeper, that dreaming is consciousness reminding itself of its own freedom. In dreams, the mind rehearses what the universe itself does at a cosmic scale. It imagines, it creates, it explores possibility. Lucid dreaming, the awareness of dreaming while still within the dream, offers a glimpse into that creative power. When one becomes lucid, the dream transforms. The world responds not to physics, but to intention. Thought becomes landscape, desire becomes event. To fly, one need only believe. To heal, one need only imagine. Within this lucid realm, the boundaries of reality dissolve completely. It is a rehearsal for awakening, a microcosm of the idea that reality itself might be a dream of something greater. Philosophers have long drawn parallels between dreaming and waking life. Zhuangzi, the ancient Chinese sage, once dreamed he was a butterfly. Upon waking, he wondered, was he a man who had dreamed of being a butterfly, or a butterfly now dreaming of being a man? Centuries later, Descartes echoed this uncertainty, questioning whether we can ever truly distinguish dreaming from reality. Today, the simulation hypothesis echoes the same theme in modern language, the idea that perhaps we, too, are inside a larger dream, one rendered by code instead of mind. Each night's sleep becomes a reminder, we are always living within layers of perception, nested dreams of being. Dreams, in their infinite variety, reveal the plasticity of consciousness. A single mind can generate universes, sights, sounds, sensations, all while resting in darkness. Every dreamer experiences what it means to be creator and observer at once. In that sense, the dream is a metaphor for life itself, a shared illusion with consistent rules, beautiful and impermanent. The difference is only one of continuity. Waking life is the long dream we agree upon, sleeping life, the private dream that reminds us of that agreement's fragility. There are moments in dreams, fleeting, luminous, when something feels profoundly real. A stranger's gaze, a sudden realization, a place you've never been yet recognized completely. These fragments linger upon waking, carrying a strange weight, as if they belonged to another reality entirely. Perhaps they do. Some physicists speculate that consciousness might be able to access quantum patterns or alternate states during sleep, glimpses of parallel realities, other configurations of existence. If true, then our dreams may not be mere fiction, but communication across the boundaries of self and universe. But whether symbolic, neurological, or metaphysical, the dream remains one of humanity's deepest mirrors. It shows us what we fear to face, what we long for, and what we are capable of imagining. The monsters we flee are our own shadows, the skies we soar through are our own aspirations. Every dream is a conversation between the known and the unknown, the mind rehearsing infinity in miniature. And then we awaken. The light returns, the body stirs, and the dream dissolves. Yet, the boundary between waking and dreaming is softer than it seems. Our thoughts, desires, and memories shape the world we perceive. We project meaning onto what we see, interpret randomness as story. In a way, waking life is also dreamlike, shaped not by the world itself, but by our perception of it. Reality, too, bends to belief. As night falls again, and the veil of sleep descends, we re-enter that liminal realm, half death, half creation. The body yields to gravity, but the mind lifts into mystery. And somewhere in that drift, we meet the edge of reality once more. Perhaps what lies beyond the screen is not separate from what we encounter in dreams. Perhaps the dream is the bridge, the rehearsal for the moment when consciousness awakens entirely and realizes that the dream of life, like all dreams, was never separate from the dreamer at all. Consciousness, the great enigma, the silent witness behind every thought, sensation, and heartbeat. It is the lens through which all experience passes, yet it remains invisible, impossible to grasp. We can map the brain, measure its electrical storms, trace the firing of neurons, and still we cannot explain why it feels like something to be alive. Why does matter, arranged in a certain way, begin to dream? What is the spark that turns chemistry into awareness, the simple mechanics of cells into the shimmering theater of mind? Science calls it the hard problem of consciousness, But perhaps that phrase understates it. For in seeking to understand consciousness, we are asking reality to look into its own eyes. Every experience you have ever known, love, fear, color, sound, memory, exists within this field of awareness. It is not something you have, it is what you are. And yet, we cannot locate it anywhere in the body. It is not in the neurons themselves, nor in any single point in the brain. Rather, consciousness seems to emerge from patterns of relation, an orchestra of signals forming something greater than the sum of its parts. Neuroscientists liken it to a symphony. No single instrument contains the music, but together they create it. Still, this analogy fails to answer the deeper question: who or what is listening? Some theories suggest that consciousness is a byproduct of complexity, that once matter organizes itself into a sufficiently intricate network, awareness simply arises, as heat arises from fire. But others propose something far more radical, that consciousness is not an emergent property, but a fundamental aspect of reality itself. According to this view, known as panpsychism, everything from atoms to galaxies possesses some form of experience, however faint. Awareness is not something the universe produces, it is what the universe is. Matter and mind are not two separate things, but two sides of the same coin, the external and internal faces of existence. If this is true, then consciousness is not confined to the human skull. It shimmers through the roots of trees, hums in the dance of electrons, ripples through oceans and air. The entire cosmos becomes a single living field of experience, differentiated into countless perspectives. Each creature, each cell, each photon, is a window through which the universe observes itself. You are one such window, a localized awareness through which reality tastes its own form. This is not metaphor, but participation. You are not in the universe. You are the universe, briefly aware of itself as you. Eastern philosophies have whispered this truth for millennia. In Vedanta, consciousness is called Brahman, the ultimate reality from which all forms arise. In Buddhism, the mind is not a possession but a boundless field, without center or edge. The Upanishads say, that which sees, hears, thinks, and breathes in you, that is the self, and that self is one with all. Modern physics, in its strange way, hints at the same. Quantum mechanics shows that observation affects outcome, that the act of measurement changes what is measured. Reality does not seem to exist as definite until it is perceived. The observer and the observed are entwined, as if awareness and existence are two halves of one equation. Yet, for all its mystery, consciousness is also profoundly intimate. It is the most immediate fact of our lives. You do not find it, you are it. It is the quiet presence behind every experience, unchanged even as thoughts and emotions rise and fall. You can watch your thoughts, notice your sensations, observe your feelings, which means that you are none of them. You are the space in which they appear. This realization is both humbling and liberating. To know yourself as awareness rather than identity is to see through the screen of personality into something vast and timeless. Some neuroscientists are beginning to explore models that blur the line between physics and philosophy. The integrated information theory suggests that consciousness corresponds to the degree of interconnectedness within a system. The more integrated the information, the more conscious it is. Meanwhile, orchestrated objective reduction, proposed by physicist Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff, speculates that consciousness may arise from quantum processes within the brain's microtubules, that awareness is not purely biological but quantum in nature, woven into the very fabric of space-time. If so, consciousness might not merely reside in the brain but interact with the fundamental structure of reality. But even if we could explain the mechanisms, would that capture the essence? To describe the chemistry of love is not to feel it. To measure the brain during meditation is not to taste the stillness within. Science can tell us how consciousness functions, but not why it exists at all. It cannot yet explain the inner light, the first-person experience of being. That ineffable quality, known as qualia, is the miracle that keeps philosophy awake at night. Why does red look red, or a melody sound beautiful, or memory hurt? Somewhere between energy and awareness lies a secret we have not yet learned to name. Consciousness may be less like a thing and more like a field, one that does not belong to us, but flows through us. Just as waves belong to the ocean, not the other way around, our individual minds may be local ripples in a universal sea of awareness. When the wave subsides, when death comes, the water does not vanish, it returns to the whole. Perhaps this is what mystics have always meant by enlightenment, not an attainment, but a recognition that there was never separation to begin with. To sit quietly and turn inward is to encounter that truth directly. Beneath the noise of thought, beyond the flicker of emotion, there is a presence that does not change. It watches birth and death, joy and sorrow, sunrise and dusk, and remains untouched. You cannot see it, yet it is the only thing that sees. You cannot name it, yet it is the source of every word. You cannot think it, yet every thought arises within it. It is the still light behind all perception, the ultimate beyond that no screen can capture. Perhaps this awareness is what reality truly is. Everything else, time, space, matter, may be expressions of consciousness, not its origin. The universe, then, is not a machine but a mind, not an accident but an unfolding act of self-awareness. We, its temporary dreamers, awaken within it, glimpse its depth, and return to it. Consciousness is the thread that connects the finite and the infinite, the bridge between illusion and truth. And if reality does have an edge, perhaps it is not physical at all. Perhaps it is the boundary where consciousness meets its own reflection, where the dream begins to realize it is dreaming. Beyond that edge, there may be no outside, only awareness turning inward, endlessly curious about its own existence. In that realization, the search ends. The seeker, the search, and the truth dissolve into one. And what remains is the quiet, radiant presence that has always been here, the witness behind the screen, awake and eternal. Memory is the ocean of the self, vast, fluid, and deep beyond measure. It is the silent archive of everything we have ever been, every face we have seen, every emotion that has brushed against our awareness. And yet it is not static. Memory shifts, reshapes, dissolves, reforms. It is not a perfect recording of the past, but a living story, a dream retold through time. To remember is not to retrieve, but to recreate. Each recollection is an act of imagination, tinted by who we have become since the moment we try to recall. In this sense, memory is less a museum and more a mirror, reflecting both what was and what is. The brain, that intricate labyrinth of neurons, stores fragments of our existence in patterns of connection. A scent may ignite a childhood scene. A melody may awaken a forgotten sorrow. These associations are threads in a vast neural web, electric whispers that rebuild the architecture of experience. Science has long sought to understand this process, how clusters of cells hold something as abstract as love or the sound of a mother's voice. But even as we map memory's neural geography, something remains elusive. For while we can observe the chemical dance of synapses, we cannot locate the feeling of remembering, that warm ache, that intimate return to a moment no longer here. There are memories we can describe and those we cannot. Some live in words and images, declarative, explicit, sharp as film. Others are wordless, the way a breeze feels against the skin, the rhythm of a heartbeat during a moment of fear, the muscle memory of walking a familiar path. These implicit memories shape our behaviors, our preferences, our instincts, often without our knowing. They are the hidden architecture of the soul's house, the unseen scaffolding that gives our consciousness its shape. But memory is not only personal, it is also collective. Humanity itself remembers. Through language, art, and myth, we have stored the echoes of countless generations. Every word we speak has been shaped by thousands of tongues before us. Every story carries the fingerprints of ancestors who dreamed, feared, and wondered under the same stars. The cave paintings of Lascaux, the hymns of Sumer, the digital archives of today, all are expressions of one long continuity of remembrance. The human species is, in essence, a single vast memory system, transmitting information not through genes alone, but through symbols, rituals, and shared imagination. And yet, memory can also deceive. It blurs the boundaries between truth and belief, fact and feeling. Two people may live the same event but recall entirely different realities. Neuroscientists call this reconstructive memory, the way each act of recall subtly rewrites what was once stored. Every time we remember, we edit. Every memory is a palimpsest, layered with emotion, bias, and time. This means that our very sense of identity, that fragile continuity we call I, is built upon stories that may not be entirely true. We are each the unreliable narrator of our own existence. What, then, does it mean to lose memory? To forget? The fear of forgetting haunts us precisely because it threatens our sense of self. Dementia, amnesia, even the simple fading of childhood recollections, they remind us that the self is built on impermanence. And yet, there is a strange mercy in forgetting. It allows life to renew itself, to make space for the present. The brain forgets not because it is flawed, but because it must. Too much memory would drown us in the weight of the past. Forgetting is the mind's way of breathing. From a cosmic perspective, memory may be more than a biological function. Some physicists and philosophers propose that the universe itself remembers, that information is never truly lost, even when stars die and matter decays. The laws of thermodynamics suggest that energy cannot vanish, only transform. In the same way, perhaps memory, too, is indestructible, encoded not in neurons but in the very fabric of spacetime. The idea of the holographic universe posits that the entire cosmos stores information about everything that has ever occurred, as if reality were a vast memory field. If so, then every moment, every breath, every thought exists eternally somewhere in the architecture of being. From this lens, memory becomes sacred. It is not only the mechanism by which life persists, but the way the universe knows itself. Stars remember their birth in the gravity that binds them. Atoms remember ancient suns in the particles that compose them. You, sitting in the present, are the culmination of countless memories written in matter, the memories of cells, of starlight, of evolution itself. To exist is to remember. And yet, what lies beyond memory? What happens when the personal dissolves into the cosmic? Perhaps at death, the fragments of our individual memories scatter like light across water, merging with the universal field from which they arose. The self dissolves, but the essence, the pattern, the resonance, remains. Just as every wave eventually returns to the ocean, every memory may return to the whole. In this sense, forgetting is not loss but return, the reunion of the particular with the infinite. In dreams, memory and imagination entwine. We revisit old places, speak with lost loved ones, relive moments reshaped by emotion. The boundaries blur between what truly happened and what never did. This merging of memory and creation is perhaps the essence of consciousness itself, the ability to weave the past and the possible into a single fabric of being. To remember is to participate in creation. Each act of memory reshapes the world, just as observation reshapes reality in quantum physics. Ultimately, memory is the poetry of existence. It binds the fleeting to the eternal, the momentary to the timeless. Without it, there is no continuity, no story, yet within it, there is illusion, distortion, and beauty. It is the bridge between what has been and what can be, between matter and meaning. And perhaps, when we look beyond the screen of our waking life, what we find there, in the quiet, infinite beyond, is not the end of memory, but its perfection. For in the stillness beyond time, nothing is ever truly forgotten. The universe remembers itself endlessly, through stars, through lives, through you. Every memory, every dream, every heartbeat is part of that infinite archive, forever unfolding, forever returning to the same silent truth, that to exist, even for a moment, is to leave an imprint on eternity. Memory is the ocean of the self, vast, fluid, and deep beyond measure. It is the silent archive of everything we have ever been, every face we have seen, every emotion that has brushed against our awareness. And yet it is not static. Memory shifts, reshapes, dissolves, reforms. It is not a perfect recording of the past, but a living story, a dream retold through time. To remember is not to retrieve, but to recreate. Each recollection is an act of imagination, tinted by who we have become since the moment we try to recall. In this sense, memory is less a museum and more a mirror, reflecting both what was and what is. The brain, that intricate labyrinth of neurons, stores fragments of our existence in patterns of connection. A scent may ignite a childhood scene. A melody may awaken a forgotten sorrow. These associations are threads in a vast neural web, electric whispers that rebuild the architecture of experience. Science has long sought to understand this process, how clusters of cells hold something as abstract as love or the sound of a mother's voice. But even as we map memory's neural geography, something remains elusive. For while we can observe the chemical dance of synapses, we cannot locate the feeling of remembering, that warm ache, that intimate return to a moment no longer here. There are memories we can describe and those we cannot. Some live in words and images, declarative, explicit, sharp as film. Others are wordless, the way a breeze feels against the skin, the rhythm of a heartbeat during a moment of fear, the muscle memory of walking a familiar path. These implicit memories shape our behaviors, our preferences, our instincts, often without our knowing. They are the hidden architecture of the soul's house, the unseen scaffolding that gives our consciousness its shape. But memory is not only personal, it is also collective. Humanity itself remembers. Through language, art, and myth, we have stored the echoes of countless generations. Every word we speak has been shaped by thousands of tongues before us. Every story carries the fingerprints of ancestors who dreamed, feared, and wondered under the same stars. The cave paintings of Lascaux, the hymns of Sumer, the digital archives of today, all are expressions of one long continuity of remembrance. The human species is, in essence, a single vast memory system, transmitting information not through genes alone, but through symbols, rituals, and shared imagination. And yet, memory can also deceive. It blurs the boundaries between truth and belief, fact and feeling. Two people may live the same event but recall entirely different realities. Neuroscientists call this reconstructive memory, the way each act of recall subtly rewrites what was once stored. Every time we remember, we edit. Every memory is a palimpsest, layered with emotion, bias, and time. This means that our very sense of identity, that fragile continuity we call I, is built upon stories that may not be entirely true. We are each the unreliable narrator of our own existence. What, then, does it mean to lose memory? To forget? The fear of forgetting haunts us precisely because it threatens our sense of self. Dementia, amnesia, even the simple fading of childhood recollections, they remind us that the self is built on impermanence. And yet, there is a strange mercy in forgetting. It allows life to renew itself, to make space for the present. The brain forgets not because it is flawed, but because it must. Too much memory would drown us in the weight of the past. Forgetting is the mind's way of breathing. From a cosmic perspective, memory may be more than a biological function. Some physicists and philosophers propose that the universe itself remembers, that information is never truly lost, even when stars die and matter decays. The laws of thermodynamics suggest that energy cannot vanish, only transform. In the same way, perhaps memory, too, is indestructible, encoded not in neurons but in the very fabric of spacetime. The idea of the holographic universe posits that the entire cosmos stores information about everything that has ever occurred, as if reality were a vast memory field. If so, then every moment, every breath, every thought exists eternally somewhere in the architecture of being. From this lens, memory becomes sacred. It is not only the mechanism by which life persists, but the way the universe knows itself. Stars remember their birth in the gravity that binds them. Atoms remember ancient suns in the particles that compose them. You, sitting in the present, are the culmination of countless memories written in matter, the memories of cells, of starlight, of evolution itself. To exist is to remember. And yet, what lies beyond memory? What happens when the personal dissolves into the cosmic? Perhaps at death, the fragments of our individual memories scatter like light across water, merging with the universal field from which they arose. The self dissolves, but the essence, the pattern, the resonance, remains. Just as every wave eventually returns to the ocean, every memory may return to the whole. In this sense, forgetting is not loss but return, the reunion of the particular with the infinite. In dreams, memory and imagination entwine. We revisit old places, speak with lost loved ones, relive moments reshaped by emotion. The boundaries blur between what truly happened and what never did. This merging of memory and creation is perhaps the essence of consciousness itself, the ability to weave the past and the possible into a single fabric of being. To remember is to participate in creation. Each act of memory reshapes the world, just as observation reshapes reality in quantum physics. Ultimately, memory is the poetry of existence. It binds the fleeting to the eternal, the momentary to the timeless. Without it, there is no continuity, no story, yet within it, there is illusion, distortion, and beauty. It is the bridge between what has been and what can be, between matter and meaning. And perhaps, when we look beyond the screen of our waking life, what we find there, in the quiet, infinite beyond, is not the end of memory, but its perfection. For in the stillness beyond time, nothing is ever truly forgotten. The universe remembers itself endlessly, through stars, through lives, through you. Every memory, every dream, every heartbeat is part of that infinite archive, forever unfolding, forever returning to the same silent truth, that to exist, even for a moment, is to leave an imprint on eternity. Time is the soft tide that carries all things, the unseen current beneath existence, the rhythm by which reality breathes. We live within it like fish in water, rarely noticing its flow, yet utterly shaped by its movement. Every heartbeat, every sunrise, every falling leaf whispers its passage. We measure it, divide it, chase it, mourn it, and yet we do not truly know what it is. Time is both the most familiar and the most mysterious of all dimensions. It is what gives life its narrative and death its inevitability. It is the substance of becoming, the invisible thread that binds the universe in motion. Einstein once showed us that time is not absolute, but elastic. It bends and stretches with gravity and speed. Near a massive star, it slows. In the vast emptiness between galaxies, it quickens. Time is not a universal beat, but a fabric, pliable and alive. To move through space is to move through time, and vice versa. What we call the present is not a fixed point, but a region of perception, a moving spotlight upon an already existing landscape of moments. Past and future may coexist, like pages already written, waiting only for consciousness to turn them. This view, known as the block universe theory, suggests that all moments, from the birth of the cosmos to the end of all stars, exist simultaneously. The flow of time, then, may be an illusion born of consciousness itself, a projection of awareness moving across a static tapestry of being. In such a reality, your first breath and your last are equally real, equally present, eternally inscribed into the structure of spacetime. You are not traveling through time, you are unfolding within it. Yet, subjectively, time feels anything but static. To the human heart, it is not geometry, but experience. It stretches and compresses according to emotion. A single minute of pain can feel like an eternity. A day of joy can vanish in a heartbeat. Memory and anticipation distort its flow, pulling the present moment into tension between what has been and what might be. We rarely live in time, we live through it, always leaning forward or glancing back, rarely at rest in the eternal now. Science and spirituality both circle around the mystery of time's true nature. In quantum mechanics, the fundamental equations that describe particles and forces are timeless. They make no distinction between past and future. Yet our experience insists on direction, an arrow, pointing from order to disorder, from birth to decay. This arrow arises from entropy, the gradual increase of disorder in closed systems. Entropy gives time its one-way flow, its irreversible rhythm. But why should reality prefer one direction over another? Why does the universe remember the past but not the future? Some physicists speculate that time itself might emerge from entanglement, the deep, quantum interconnection between all things. According to this view, time arises from relationships, not as an independent force but as a measure of change. If nothing changed, time would not exist. It is motion, transformation, that gives time meaning. In this way, time may not be something we move through. It may be something we create by observing, by experiencing, by being. Consciousness might not be trapped in time. It might be the source of time's very flow. Philosophers have long wrestled with this paradox. St. Augustine once confessed, "What is time? If no one asks me, I know. If I try to explain, I do not." To him, time was not an external phenomenon, but a function of the soul, memory of the past, attention to the present, expectation of the future. Modern mindfulness echoes this insight, urging us to awaken from the illusion of linearity and return to the only moment that truly exists, now. For when one becomes fully present, time seems to dissolve. Minutes and hours blur. There is only awareness, infinite and still. This dissolution of time is experienced in many ways. In meditation, in art, in love, in awe. It is the feeling of timelessness, the suspension of before and after. Mystics have described it as touching eternity. Neuroscientists call it the flow state. In both cases, the self ceases to measure and simply is. Perhaps this timeless state is not an exception, but the fundamental reality momentarily glimpsed. Maybe time, as we know it, is a veil drawn over eternity. A necessary illusion that allows consciousness to experience sequence, growth, and story. Consider the possibility that time is not passing through us, but unfolding from us. That the sense of a beginning and an end is born from perception, not the universe itself. Death, then, might not be a terminus, but a transition, a shift of awareness beyond linear sequence. In dreams, we move through time effortlessly. A lifetime can unfold in seconds. What if the cosmos dreams in the same way? What if every instant contains all others, and what we call past and future are merely directions of attention, not coordinates of existence? To the physicist, time may be a dimension. To the mystic, it is illusion. But perhaps both are true. The arrow of time governs the physical, ensuring evolution, decay, and continuity. The timeless realm, consciousness itself, observes it all, unchanged. We are both creatures of time and witnesses beyond it. Like waves rising and falling on the ocean of eternity, we live within sequence, yet are made of something that does not move. Imagine, for a moment, the universe at its beginning, the first flicker of light in an infinite void. From that singular moment, all time unfolded, all stars were born, all lives written. And yet, from a higher view, that beginning is not back there. It is happening still, eternally. The universe is not aging. It is being. Time is its language of expression, not its limitation. So when we look beyond the screen, beyond the measured flow of hours and years, we may find that time is not a river, but a mirror, one that reflects our own awareness back to us. The past, the future, the present, all are facets of a single jewel, refracting the same light of consciousness. And as that awareness gazes upon its own reflection, it invents the story of time so that it may experience itself as a journey. In the stillness of deep sleep, or the serenity of a moment fully lived, that illusion fades. We glimpse the eternal, unbroken now, the true home of being. Time, then, is not the enemy of eternity, but its expression, its rhythm, its unfolding song. It is how infinity whispers itself into motion, how the timeless becomes the temporary. And perhaps, when the final moment arrives and the screen of perception dissolves, we will discover that we never left that timeless state at all. We only dreamed we did. Silence is the foundation beneath all things, the quiet from which sound is born, the stillness into which it returns. It is not the absence of noise, but the presence of depth. Beneath every movement, every thought, every heartbeat, there is silence, vast, patient, eternal. Yet in a world saturated with sound and signal, We have forgotten how to hear it. We fill the air with words, the mind with noise, the heart with motion, as though afraid of the emptiness that waits beneath. But silence is not emptiness. It is fullness, the infinite space in which everything appears, and to which everything belongs. Consider the night sky. The stars do not speak, yet their silence is thunderous. Between each point of light stretches an immeasurable quiet, older than time, deeper than comprehension. That cosmic stillness is not lifeless. It hums with potential, with gravity, with unspoken creation. In that silence, galaxies are born and die without sound. The universe itself, in all its beauty and violence, unfolds within an ocean of quietude. We are bathed in it every moment of our existence, even when we do not notice. Silence is the fabric of reality. Sound is merely its brief disturbance. Within us, too, silence holds power. The mind, restless and loud, resists it at first. To sit in quiet is to face oneself, to feel the echo of every thought and emotion that rises. This is why true silence can be unsettling. It reveals what the noise conceals. Yet, if one remains still long enough, something extraordinary happens. The inner turbulence begins to soften. The stream of thought slows. What remains is not emptiness but awareness, pure, unconditioned presence. This is the silence that mystics have called divine, the wordless space in which the soul recognizes itself. Neuroscience shows that moments of stillness activate the brain's default mode network, the same system that underlies self-reflection and creativity. In silence, the brain does not shut down. It reorganizes. Neurons reweave, stress hormones diminish, the mind begins to integrate scattered fragments of experience. Silence, in this way, is not passive. It is healing, active, alive. It allows the mind to breathe, to recalibrate. When monks, poets, and scientists speak of clarity emerging from quiet, it is not metaphor, it is physiology harmonized with spirit. Across cultures, silence has been revered as sacred. In the deserts of Sinai, prophets heard the voice of God not in thunder, but in stillness. In Zen temples, silence is the teacher itself. In the depths of meditation, silence is not endured but entered, a doorway through which the individual dissolves into the infinite. Even music, that most expressive of human arts, depends entirely on silence. Without pauses, without breath, there is no rhythm, no beauty. Sound gives life to silence. Silence gives meaning to sound. They are two sides of one mystery. Perhaps reality itself is a cosmic symphony, vibration and rest, motion and stillness. Every particle oscillates, yet between each oscillation there is pause. Quantum physicists describe the universe as a sea of energy, flickering between being and non-being at unimaginable speeds. Between each flicker lies a silent moment, the gap in which existence recharges itself. If time were slowed infinitely, perhaps we would see that everything arises from silence, moment by moment, a dance of appearing and vanishing. The universe breathes in silence, and we are the breath. In our modern age, silence has become a rare and almost radical experience. The hum of machines, the buzz of notifications, the ceaseless chatter of thought, all conspire to keep us away from it. Yet, deep within, the longing for stillness persists. It is why we seek the quiet of forests, the hush before dawn, the sound of rain against windows. These are not mere sensory preferences, they are acts of remembrance. Something ancient within us recognizes silence as home. When we rest in it, we are not escaping the world. We are returning to its source. Psychologically, silence holds a mirror to truth. In conversation, pauses often reveal more than speech. Between lovers, a glance in silence can convey more intimacy than 1,000 words. Between enemies, silence can express the deepest tension. Silence does not merely accompany meaning, it is meaning, purified of form. It allows awareness to expand beyond the boundaries of language, beyond the limits of logic. For words divide, they name, separate, define. Silence unites. It holds all opposites in harmony. The paradox of silence is that it cannot be heard, yet it contains all sound. It cannot be described, yet it gives birth to all expression. Just as the screen holds every image without being any of them, silence holds every word, every thought, every event, without changing. It is the background upon which reality paints itself. When the film of life flickers before our senses, silence is the projector's light, unseen, steady, essential. And when we die, it is into silence that we fall. The body's rhythm ceases, the voice fades, the mind quiets. But perhaps this is not an ending but a return. In that final stillness, we may rediscover the same silence that surrounded our first breath, the silence before birth, before thought, before self. It is not absence but reunion, the merging of the wave back into the ocean of being. In that eternal quiet, there is no fear, no loss, no sound, only presence. Silence teaches that nothing needs to be added for completeness. The world, even in its noise and chaos, rests upon a still foundation that never moves. To listen deeply is to hear it, beneath traffic, beneath voices, beneath your own heartbeat. The silence is always there, waiting. It is not something to create, but something to notice. And perhaps, beyond the edge of reality, beyond the screen of perception and time, silence is what remains. The pure awareness before creation's first vibration. The stillness that gave rise to the Big Bang. The quiet that listens to itself. It is there before the story begins and after it ends. It is the first and last truth, the soundless presence that has never not been. When we learn to dwell in silence, we realize we were never separate from it. We are its expression, fleeting notes in an eternal song. And when the final sound fades, the silence that remains does not mourn, it smiles, knowing that nothing was ever lost. The universe was never noise at all, only silence, momentarily dreaming itself into sound. In the end, we return, not to a place, but to a realization. That everything we have sought beyond the screen has been within us all along. The universe, consciousness, memory, time, silence, each a reflection of the same infinite presence, glimpsed through different faces. We began this journey wondering what lies beyond reality's edge, but perhaps the truth is simpler, gentler. There is no edge. There is only continuity, unfolding endlessly, like breath following breath. What we call boundaries are but horizons of perception, dissolving as we draw closer. Reality is not a wall but a window, one that opens both inward and outward. We look beyond it and see galaxies, ancient light crossing billions of years to reach our eyes. We look within it and find awareness, immeasurable and timeless. Between those two infinities, we live our small, radiant lives, fragile, fleeting, but luminous with meaning. Every heartbeat, every act of wonder, every moment of stillness adds a verse to the poem of existence. And when that poem ends, it does not vanish. It echoes through the fabric of being, folded into the great silence that listens beneath all sound. Perhaps what lies beyond the screen is not another realm, but understanding, the knowing that all distinctions between within and beyond, real and imagined, are only veils drawn by consciousness to know itself. The dreamer and the dream, the observer and the observed, have always been one. The universe peers out through our eyes, feels through our hearts, and thinks through our minds. It explores itself through us, through every question we ask, every mystery we contemplate, every quiet moment we surrender to. So when we finally stop searching, when we allow the noise to fade and the questions to rest, we find that the answer was never hidden. It was the stillness between thoughts, the breath between words, the silence behind the sound. Reality's edge was never a boundary, it was a mirror. And what lies beyond it is not another world, but the same vast awareness looking back, smiling gently, knowing it was never separate at all. The light dims, the noise fades, and once again we are left with silence. The same silence from which we came, and to which we will return. In that silence, there is no fear, no distance, no end, only presence, infinite and unbroken. Beyond the screen, beyond the dream, there is only this, the quiet pulse of existence itself. And if you listen closely, you can still hear it, soft, endless, eternal, the universe breathing you back into peace.